Everybody, welcome back to Games for Gamers on YouTube. I am Napalm Dawn, and today we're going to run a comparison video of Kang the Conqueror in Marvel Avengers Alliance compared to his current iteration in Marvel Strike Force. These are the only two games we're really going to be talking about in this video because unlike a lot of the other ones that I do like this on the channel, we don't have other Marvel games where we can really talk about Kang, mostly because he's generally a villain and you don't get to play him heroically in really that many of the Marvel games. He could make an appearance in Future Fight because you do control villains there. I don't think he's in Future Fight, even though they have a Quantum Mania thing going on, which we can take a look at. But it's pretty much Strike Force compared to Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux. As I always need to get out in the beginning of the video, because I still keep getting fucking questions on this, there is not going to be a mobile version of Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux available on iOS, available on Android, available on your refrigerator, or Steam, or your Commodore 64, or your Nokia phone that runs Pixel Snake on it. Going to be PCs, Macs, and maybe Linux related. It's not going to be on a Chromebook either because Chromebook runs Chrome OS, which is not an OS this is being developed for, and modern Chromebooks can run APKs, which are Android files. It's not going to be on Android, therefore it is not going to be on Chrome OS. Windows, Macs, possibly Linux. And Mac is still in the works, but Beta 4 has seen some playability on Macs. Speaking of Beta 4, no, I do not have updates on future betas of Redux, so don't ask about that either. The current versions are 4, which is available to the public, 4.1, which is a internal only tester build. No, I cannot provide links to that. It is internal only. What the status of a 4.5 or a 5.0, I cannot tell you at this point in time. Not because I know it and I'm hiding it from you, but because from its source, I do not know it. So, no updates there when it comes to future betas or the release candidate of Redux. So, jumping into it, we got Kang as a lockbox in Marvel Avengers Alliance. And similar to Doom, he could only be paired up with the agent. However, this is generally where the similarities end between Doom and Kang. Kang was largely considered to be trash. He pretty much was trashed here when it came to Avengers Alliance. Doom would get power creeped out so that within the last 6 months of the game, when I did actually run into a defensive agent that ran Doom and the agent, obviously, Doom's hit points were not enough to cripple your team by having Doom and an agent and not your third character. There was no point to it. Doom's abilities are pretty good, especially if you ran him with a protector agent that could leave Doom untouched for a while to kind of do his ramp and everything. First of all, Doom Cannon, to get it off in PvP, very, very tough. Can't say I've seen it happen. Here in Redux Beta 2, with that ability unlocked right at the start, Doom Cannon is actually one of the most powerful abilities in Redux Beta 2. He did not make it into Beta 4 because it's only the basic slate of characters, but if you go back into Beta 2, you can play Doom and you can play Kang. Doom was a mix of tech and mystic / magical abilities. Ring Imperial was ungodly godly at the time in PvP. He came to us as Doom lockboxes, which were open-upable on Christmas. However, I waited up until about 3:30 in the morning on Christmas Day, and the boxes were not unlockable at that time, so I had to wait until I actually woke up and then unlocked him in the middle of the day. Kang came from lockboxes. Kang was also in a Spec Ops, which we can talk about, but he just was never really viable. He's an awkward character to use. I don't think his counterattack worked nearly as much as they were supposed to. And really, one of the best things about him was phasing out of reality somewhat with his out of time. He just wasn't really that good. And Time Stream was supposed to work the way of Doom and Genetically Altered, where you put it on somebody, but then if it got cleaned, it did a reasonable pop of damage, but I think it did less than cleaning Doom and less than cleaning Genetically Altered. Plus, one of the ways that you made Doom and Genetically Altered really, really work was by using Anti-Venom. With Purge, you cannot use Anti-Venom with Kang. Therefore, the Napalm Dawn rating of Kang for PvP is trash tier. I'm not saying he's Cammy, but he isn't even what Doctor Doom was. So, looking at his kit when he was in Avengers Alliance, very high health, pretty high stamina, pretty high attack, and defense, accuracy, and evasion were maxed out. So if you wanted to go to the PKB method of ISOing him or the Pot Kettle Black method of ISOing him, you would go for attack, accuracy, and then you could pick either defense or evasion, either one. I would say go for defense because he has a bunch of his own built-in evasion, and if the agent ran the cube with reality hacking, it'd probably be overkill to build his evasion. So I would say attack, accuracy for crit, because he has a very high crit rate on some abilities, and defense, ignore evasion. Maybe splash him a little bit of stamina using the new PvP rules, not the old one where stamina really didn't mean a lot. He came to us from the Timeless Lockbox collection. He had a passive of Future Knowledge, which granted him the chance to preemptively counter enemy attacks. So could be good with the Raft Shank or the agent running follow-up items. And you have the Conqueror, which is nobody wants to work with him, just like Doom. He had two sets of abilities. He had his in-time and his out-of-time abilities. The in-time level 1 was temporal, and it caused impaired. He had the level 2 of switching to out of phase, which was a free action. He gained time flux, which meant a lot of attacks would miss him. That's why I'm saying evasion isn't that good for him. And for himself, he gains out of time, 50% chance to slip out of time and avoid an attack. That's why defense is better, because if attack does land, it's going to do reduced damage. He has his built-in evasion. Temporal Armory, high crits up to 67%, so that's why you want to build accuracy. It's temporal, and it does reduced potential. Keep this in mind when we look at Marvel Strike Force. Reduced potential has a chance to lock out melee, ranged, buff, and debuff. And he also has the Mahakalpa, which is his green and black sword that we see from his gear in Spec Ops 7. Exploit opportunity, exploit shields, wrinkle in time. Now, impaired is not. It is an opportunist debuff, so that is an opportunist debuff that it can take advantage of. So is neutralized, and so is exhausted. I think exhausted is opportunist, right? It's not a pressure point. Yes, it is an opportunist. Okay, so he doesn't cause opportunist, but he does cause some of them individually, so he has some things that he can take advantage of. When he is out of time, he does time burn, which deals additional damage when removed because it causes the time stream displacement. Debuff receives additional damage from energy and temporal attacks. So the agent can do a lot of good stuff with energy. However, he's tech, and there is something that can counter Kang in Kang's own gear, which is kind of ridiculously stupid. But anyway, neutralized in his level 2, he had Future Knowledge, chance to preemptively counter enemy attacks. He has the Chrono Shield. By the way, his This ability over here does rally, which makes the Chrono Shield a quick action. Shield size is 30% of the character's health. It absorbs incoming damage. Anybody who hits them with this gets time stream displacement. It evades temporal attacks and immune to harmful time effects. So this is how he counters his counter. It's kind of funny. It's a burrito of Kang, anti-Kang, anti-Kang abilities going on here. More on that in a moment. And then his level 9 is time stream displacement on everybody. They gain an additional stack. The displacer can do it. 2. Exhausted and then ripple effect. Kang counters and prevents counterattacks and follow-up attacks. Enemy attacks can't be stealthy. On paper, that looks amazing. It seems very Heroic Age Iron Fist, very Wrath Shank. Sounds like it could be good with like a Spider-Man Noir or a Rocket Raccoon or a Union Jack and combo breakers and everything like that. Enemy attacks can't be stealthy. He's very Heimdall-ish. Not many things can do that. But he just really wasn't that good. And his ISO, the one he got, was cybernetic, where you become immune to bleeding, burning, chilled, and obsolete tech. Very high crit resistance. Not good. Not really good at all. So he could shut down a Mystic, and there is this thing over here, the soldering iron. So the soldering iron came from the Kang gear when you got it in Spec Ops 7, and it does downgrade where it prevents technology attacks, it removes beneficial technology attacks, metal targets gain magnetized, which is good for Magneto. This is a good setup for Magneto, and it's a good anti-cube weapon, and a good anti-Kang weapon, and an anti-Doom weapon, actually, if you don't prevent it. Now, it in itself is a tech attack, so if an agent gets hit with the Mystic, they're not going to be able to fire the soldering iron, and if they get hit by a soldering iron, you can't use your own. The gear that you got in Spec Ops 7 has a few winners, but it is largely trash. The advanced idea showed up late in Marvel Avengers Alliance when psychic attacks started taking off again. The last year, 6 months or so, there were some really good agent kits that made use of the advanced idea. It did, I think, eventually become part of the store at one point for gold, maybe, but this doesn't list that. But anybody who had it during the Kang Spec Ops, this was actually a decent piece of gear. The Baltog's blaster was also relatively good, and if you could pair it up for when you got Kang, this was pretty solid, because if you look, time stream displacement is caused by Kang. He has something that causes that. So Baltog's blaster actually did some reasonable damage. It is temporal, so it doesn't hit protect effects, and it ignores most avoidance effects except for reality hacking. Radiation exposure is okay, but the worthy were immune to it. The Decade is a crappy sword that got upgraded. The Displacer is this crappy hose nozzle over here. That thing wasn't good. Indiction got upgraded. We'll see that in a moment. The MAA, however, was pretty popular in PvP. A lot of agents, especially defensive agents, ran a MAA. Not necessarily because of its weakness exploitation, but because of future knowledge. The best thing about the Kang Spec Ops is none of these that you might think. It's the Manvatara, and I'm going to explain why. Anybody remember the Hugins Eye meta in PvP? When enemy agents ran the Hugins Eye and you could not hit them with melee at all? And then what would happen if they ran the Hugins Eye and the Escutcheon ISO or the Elite ISO that made them drain So they would likely dodge you, not even take any damage, and then they could drain you just for attempting to swing at them, even if you didn't hit them. Well, enter the Manvatara, the best Hugins Eye nullifier. I'm going to say it here. I said it then. I'm going to say it here for when Redux hits its final release candidate and we start getting the PvP seasons. Get the Manvatara. Especially have it in your inventory when it comes time for the Hugins Eye meta. This is why. It swings at all enemies, but because it's temporal, it largely won't be avoided, and it doesn't trigger protect abilities. And it's not like it's stealthy, so Heimdall can shut it down or something like that. It just doesn't trigger protect abilities. It's not stealthy, it's not passive or anything like that. It just works. It's melee and it's energy also, and it's temporal. So if somebody has the weakness to energy, this is good. The temporal is good. But this is the big key here. When something causes opportunist, and you won't see it until you get the arcade Spec Ops gear, the pesty gear here, the Ex-Oblivion, the flashy gun, and the subtle gun with the Deadpool guns, they're trash. Indiction is the unupgraded version of the Manvatara. The Master Sword is very good, but the Scroll of Rudamaroth only comes around later in the game, and the Staff of Storms is later in the game. If you want to do Opportunist, and you want to do Opportunist as an AoE, and you want to have it hit the agent because avoidance effects are largely avoided with this weapon, you got to get the Manvatara because staggered, which means the enemy can't dodge, is a 100% guarantee on any opportunist debuffing piece of gear. You can see the others are 10 or 15%, but anytime you do the opportunist debuff, you will 100% of the time get staggered. Staggered means you can't dodge, the Hugins Eye is shut down, break it, throw it in the trash. It now means nothing. And that is why you need to get a Manvatara. Let's take a look at the Hugins Eye real quick. Special functionality can't be used. Watchful Eye. High chance to evade unarmed attacks. Removes True Strike. Does not affect unarmed attacks with Ethereal or Catastrophic. Dodging melee attacks gains many shot, which this part really didn't mean a hell of a lot, but you could jack up your agent with a lot of ranged gear and take advantage of it. But for the most part, the Hugins Eye generally meant melee attacks would get dodged, and then when you combined it with the escutcheon, really crazy. The Manvatara shuts that down. So if you're running a team of melee people or unarmed people like a Quicksilver or Spitfire, the Manvatara does all the work for you. Yes, the escutcheon would still drain, but at least now the person can actually be hit. Get a Manvatara. Okay, so we've seen what Kang looks like here in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Here's his two kits, whether he's in time or out of time. Got the purple, the helmet, the blue visor, the green, a tech belt, and there's his ball tag blaster in his hand. There is the downgraded Manvatara over there. That's the Decade over there. Just a shield, sort of looks like Doom's ability there. There's the ball tag blaster. Now let's take a look at him over in Marvel Strike Force. He's pretty on brand. So visually, you can see it's a very similar character look. There's a little bit more flair to his cloak and chest here. The belt doesn't quite look as techy, but it does still seem lit up. Doesn't have the Christmas tree lights. He's a villain, Cosmic Tech Blaster, Masters of Evil, and Quantum. However, his kit doesn't really make reference to Quantum. It's all Masters of Evil. If we were to take a look at the teams that he works with, here's Masters of Evil, which is Ultron, Kang, Absorbing Man, and Titania. These four are available. You get Ultron by doing the special campaigns. Kang absorbing Man Titania, which is buildable now through the monthly and daily quests, and Moonstone, who is not available yet. Interesting Masters of Evil setup, interesting Moonstone look compared to Marvel Avengers Alliance. I think I actually like it more, although it kind of looks like Captain Marvel trying to be undercover and evil to a certain degree, but I think I like this Moonstone look a little bit better than her, what was called the boob window in Marvel Avengers Alliance. Not that I have an issue with the boob window, I'm just quoting what people had called it at the time. If we take a look at who is Quantum, wow, that's actually a lot more characters than I thought. Why Spider-Man Noir? And why Spider-Woman? And why Agatha? Very interesting for these Quantum characters. I don't know how the branding of that all works. I mean, obviously, the Pimtech character certainly makes sense, but why Spider-Woman? Why Ultimus? But alright, it doesn't really matter because Kang doesn't really have synergies within Quantum. So we'll go back and leave it at Masters of Evil. Taking a look at his abilities, we have the Temporal Blow, which is a spiked mace. It looks decidedly untech. It looks very classical RPG-ish. Looks very medieval. When you see it in combat, it's not very tech looking, especially when you compare it to that. I mean, that looks pretty tech and almost looks like maybe you're swinging a universe on a stick. This is just your classic RPG mace. Not a Morningstar, because Morningstar is a chain. It looks very mace-ish. Attack the primary target for piercing. If they're vulnerable, which is made from the ISO attacks, fill his character's speed bar. It ignores defense up. So you can see how it's similar to Marvel Avengers Alliance, where it's like sort of getting around avoidance and defenses and everything. The damage goes up, the speed bar goes up. Here at level 6, additional piercing to the primary and secondary targets, and additional filling of the speed bar if they're vulnerable, and then eventually you cause Disrupted, which is similar to the reduced potential that Kang did in Avengers Alliance. So we're kind of on brand here. So far, so good. I have him as a striker. I could imagine maybe Raider working, because this guy does tend to like crits. But right now, I have him as that, and the community has him as that. His second ability, Foreseen Strikes, ignores defense up, and it does piercing, so he kind of really lives up to the theme of Blaster. The way we think of Blaster from Avengers Alliance, of piercing defenses and being good against bruisers and tanks, it's pretty similar here. Except he was a tactician in Avengers Alliance, so that's a little bit different. But he did Blaster-ish things. Attacking the primary and adjacent targets for piercing, he applies a slow. He gains an evade when he crits. He applies defense up for self and all allies, 2 offense up to self and Masters of Evil. It ignores defense up. Another evasion on a crit, slow. Offense up for himself and the Masters of Evil. Apply defense up to self and all allies. And finally, at the orange level, he clears barriers on everybody he attacks with this. So you can see how that's a good anti-tank. I mean, there isn't too many things out there that just wipe out barriers like that. That's really good and really strong. And then his orange over here was the disrupted one. And then you get to his third ability, Time's Up. Takes a lot of energy for it. It takes 2 rounds to get there. He attacks everybody and clears positive effects. He reduces the speed bar. He applies a speed up to himself and the MOE. Another speed up, piercing, reduction in speed bar, clearing 3 positive effects, reducing the speed bar again. That goes up. 2 speed ups to self and the MOE. And then finally, clear all barrier, death proof, defense down. Gets applied to all enemies. I feel like everything on this dude is orange worthy. This is one of the few characters I've seen in a while where it's like, man, I would orange just about everything over here. I mean, he counters so much. And then his passive of Time Warlord, it's a Crucible related item over here where he gives speed up to himself in the MOE. Attacking enemies for piercing. This happens, by the way, every time his turn comes up. It's similar to Baron Zemo. It's very, very close to that. Piercing, transferring negative effects from himself, more Crucible stuff. Health goes up, crit chance goes up, crit damage goes up. This is why I say he likes crit. Gain an additional crit chance based on any MOE with offense up, crit chance up, max health up, more Crucible stuff on this one, crit chance up, crit damage up, and then finally, when any enemy gains a speed up, fill the speed bar for Kang by 10% on spawn on offense. Fill speed bar by 5% for self and all allies on turn. Steal 3% all from 3% health from all enemies and redistribute to self. This attack bypasses heal bar, so that you get a little like Scarlet Witch going on over there. I feel like he's plug and play just about anywhere. Especially considering MOE cannot be completed yet without Moonstone, but I will show you a team that I have him on right now for Blitz just for entertainment purposes. I have him with Absorbing Man and Ultron, so these are the two other MOE that I have. I have him with Ultron again as Tech, Minerva as Tech, and Scientist Supreme as Tech. So it's basically Tech themed with one MOE here, just to boost that. I could also say Undying or Zombie Iron Man might fit this theme a little bit of villain and tech. Rocket Raccoon would boost the team, except I have Rocket obviously way, way higher than Kang, and like thematically, I don't think it fits to have Rocket Raccoon powing around with Kang and buffing him. So that's that first attack there that Kang does, his on-turn attack. If we look at this, attack the primary and adjacent targets for the piercing, apply the slow, defense up to self and all allies. Watch the amount of buffs that we're going to get from this. Just this first round. There's the mace, looking very medieval. There's the primary, the secondary, which is the bonk, and a tertiary one over there. That bonk is hysterical. Just right in the head. I'm going to have Ultron drop bots because I want to prolong this. Scientist Supreme's going to do the debuff thing. I'm just going to shoot on Minerva. I don't really have that much of a choice there. Absorbing Man. Yeah, let's see. Clear 3 negative. We don't want to clear the negative effects because we want Scientist Supreme to do it. So I'm just going to go Brick, Lion, Cage. Like Luke Cage over there. Buff. 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 Let's see. Another can't be revived, by the way. Kang and Ultron both shut down revivals, which is pretty neat. Unfortunately, Ultron killed Luke Cage. This is attacking all enemies. Clear 3 positive effects. She doesn't have any other than stealth. There's the speed up. I'm just going to use the mace shot over here. Hopefully it won't kill her. So it starts with the blaster, which hangs out, ready to fall. Oh my god. Yeah, so look at all the buffs that my team has. And Scientist Supreme didn't even get her second turn where she makes all the negatives buffs. But, yeah, he's fun. And seeing that ability slow down is really cool. The way that that's just hanging there, waiting for him to get done with his mace attacks and everything. So there we go. There is the comparison between Kang and Marvel Avengers Alliance and Strike Force. We don't really have any other games to talk about him in, unfortunately. I will pop over to Future Fight really quick just to deal with the Quantum Mania stuff as we round out the video over here. I think he's pretty solid. I thought I heard some people saying that they weren't going to go for him, they didn't think he was that good. I don't think that I agree with that. He looks pretty solid, and I don't know why I keep getting this Epic killed Battle Breakers. Why the Google Play Store keeps telling me that Battle Breakers is available, I don't um understand at all. But so as this loads up here for Future Fight, which I'll probably show on this video, if it installs pretty quickly, it may have to run the patch when the game actually launches, because I don't launch Future Fight on this copy of BlueStacks too often. If it's a big patch, I'm just gonna skip it. We'll end the video, but if it's a relatively small one, we'll let it go. Anyway, while this is loading up, I may have an announcement a little later in the week. I'm not exactly too sure yet. It kind of all depends how things go. It is not 100% tied to Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux, but in a way it is slightly related to it. I'm not ready to talk about it yet, but it's something that may be coming up in the future. I just have to place things by ear. So this does seem to be taking a bit, so maybe we'll take a look at the Quantumania stuff in Marvel Future Fight in a future video. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this video, seeing Kang in action in Marvel Avengers Alliance, Marvel Strike Force. We don't really have any other games to compare him to. Kang in Strike Force is leaning into that look of the actor that is currently in Quantumania, and of course was in the Loki season. It's similar to Electro going over to Jamie Foxx's look, and Heimdall going over to Andrew Silva, and Ant-Man, going over to Rudd and everything like that. Maybe we'll let this download play out over here. But have you guys seen Quantumania yet? Without spoilers, what did you think about it? Because I've got some good friends who see Marvel movies, and I've seen them post good things about it on Facebook, but then I hear people talking about the reviews, and it's like getting slammed. And I'm not even talking about by the reviewers, I'm talking about people saying it's not that good, but then I have some people that I usually trust saying it was pretty good. I haven't seen it yet. I may see it this weekend, upcoming over at Alamo Drafthouse. That's usually where my girlfriend and I see the Marvel movies. But if you've seen it, what do you think? Is it worth seeing, or should it largely be avoided? I really had hopes this would not be a bad film. It looked like it had the really good potential to be a great film, and seeing it get slammed a little bit is kind of sad. So, looking at the uniforms in the store, so yeah, that's pretty similar to a Strike Force look. And there's a new skin for MODOK, a really scary skin for MODOK, actually. Looking at the store, if we go to the uniforms, we can see there's the MODOK uniform. Here is the new Wasp uniform. It's relatively similar to the other ones that we've had from the MCU. Ant-Man, I mean, God, like, they change so little for him in this game, visually speaking. And then they have Arachnite, Chasm, just some other things over here. But the Quantumania is MODOK, Wasp, and Ant-Man. And then if you go to... Is it under challenge? Yeah, Legendary Battles. You have a Quantumania Legendary Battle where a 1-star Cassie Lang is available. And then if you go over to Extreme, there you can see a reference to the MODOK uniform over there. Let's look at the roster. See if there's anything that's listed as locked that I don't have. Oh, yeah. As you can see, it has been a very, very long time since I played Future Fight, so there's a lot of things that are behind, like this game's version of Moonstone, and all these guys over here, including Silver Surfer. And then here is Cassie Lang, looking very, very similar to Wasp. She's available for the biometrics where you have to pay for it. And there's what she looks like over here. Really looks like Wasp. If I saw that, I would be like, oh, that's Wasp. But it's Cassie. Anyway, thanks for checking out the video. Let me know what you think about Quantumania. And yeah, Napalm signing off.